For more than 3 decades, Sean Diddy Combs was not just a name in the music industry. He was an institution, a gatekeeper,
A man whose approval could launch careers, rewrite futures, or quietly end them.
From the outside, his world looked untouchable. White suits, private jets, endless parties filled with celebrities, executives, and power brokers. He was the architect of a lifestyle that millions admired and tried to imitate.
But power rarely announces when it begins to rot. It hides behind success, behind money, behind silence.
For years, rumors followed him,
Stories whispered in corners.
jokes made on stages and then quickly forgotten. Nothing ever seemed to stick, until it did. According to federal investigators, the collapse did not begin with a dramatic arrest or a public scandal. It began quietly, with paperwork,
With testimony,
with people who had stayed silent for years finally deciding not to anymore.
prosecutors would later describe what followed not as the fall of a celebrity, but as the exposure of a structure, a system built on control, a system protected by influence,
A system designed to operate in plain sight while remaining invisible. As the doors of a federal detention center closed,
They did not just close on one man.
they closed on decades of unanswered questions, on private rooms no one spoke about,
On recordings no one was meant to see.
on an industry that had learned to look away.
This case, investigators argue, is not about music.
It is not about fame.
It is about what happens when power believes it is untouchable, and what happens when that belief finally shatters.
This is where the story begins, not with a verdict,
Not with a headline.
but with the moment the illusion started to crack. For years, the image never changed. Power, money,
Control.
from the outside, everything looked untouchable.
But every empire has a moment where the surface begins to fracture.
For this story, that moment came quietly. November 2023.
No sirens,
No press conference, just paperwork. A lawsuit.
filed by someone who knew the system from the inside.
Cassie Ventura was not a stranger. She was not an outsider. She was part of the world no one questioned.
The filing sent shockwaves through the industry.
And then, something unusual happened.
The case was settled,
Not in weeks,
not in months.
in 24 hours. The official language called it amicable. But silence this fast is rarely peace.
It is damage control.
Behind closed doors, phones rang non-stop. Lawyers worked through the night.
Statements were prepared before questions were asked, because everyone understood what this meant.
This was not the end of a story. It was the first crack, and cracks spread.
Federal attention followed.
Not quietly, not politely. Investigators did not knock.
They arrived.
Los Angeles, Miami, large properties, private estates, places designed to keep the outside world away. Inside, what they found changed everything.
Rooms that raised questions no one wanted answered. Equipment that did not belong in ordinary homes. Objects that turned rumors into evidence.
This was no longer celebrity gossip. This was federal territory.
Prosecutors began assembling a picture,
Not of a single bad decision,
but of a structure,
a system.
a network that relied on silence, loyalty, and fear. The theory was simple. Power had been used as insulation, fame as camouflage, money as protection.
And for years, it worked. Until it didn't.
Because once the armor cracks,
Everything underneath becomes visible.
and what was hidden for decades was finally exposed to the light.
What investigators uncovered next was not chaos. It was organization.
According to federal filings, this was not a series of random incidents. It was a mechanism.
Carefully built, carefully protected.
At the center of that mechanism was something.
Investigators would later describe as the vault. Not a single room, not one safe,
But a system of storage, hard drives, encrypted devices,
private servers.
material that was never meant to be seen.
Prosecutors alleged these recordings were not collected by accident. They were curated, labeled,
Archived, secured, the theory was chilling.
This was not memory, it was leverage.
A way to ensure silence, a way to control outcomes, a way to make sure no one spoke.
According to investigators,
The events tied to these recordings followed a pattern. Exclusive gatherings,
restricted access,
phones removed,
nothing spontaneous.
nothing uncontrolled.
Witnesses would later describe environments where boundaries dissolved, where power decided what was normal, where refusal was not an option. But the most disturbing part was not what happened in those rooms. It was what happened after. People stayed silent. Careers continued. Public images remained untouched.
Because once something is recorded, it no longer belongs to the person in the frame. It becomes a weapon.
Prosecutors argue this system did not exist for pleasure.
It existed for protection.
For decades, it worked, until federal attention reached the fault itself.
Because secrets lose their power the moment they are no longer private.
And once investigators saw the pattern,
they understood this was not about one individual.
It was about a system designed to never collapse, until it did. What followed was not outrage. It was silence.
Not the kind that comes from shock,
but the kind that comes from understanding.
People knew.
They had always known. For years, the signs were there. The rumors,
the sudden disappearances,
the careers that ended without explanation. But silence was easier.
Looking away required less courage than speaking up.
Doors stayed closed.
Invitations were still sent. Smiles were still exchanged in public. Because this was not just one person's secret.
It was a shared agreement, an unspoken rule.
You don't ask. You don't look.
You don't remember. Inside private spaces, nothing changed. The music played. The lights dimmed. The rooms remained locked.
Outside, images were carefully maintained. Statements were polished. History was rewritten in real time.
Those who stayed silent were rewarded.
Those who questioned were pushed out.
Not violently,
quietly.
And that was the most effective method. No confrontation,
no resistance,
just erasure. Over time, the silence became protection, not just for one figure, but for an entire structure.
A system that did not need threats, because everyone understood the cost.
This was not ignorance, it was participation.
And participation leaves no fingerprints, because when everyone knows,
no one feels responsible until the silence breaks.
And when it does,
it doesn't whisper, it echoes. The collapse did not arrive with noise.
There was no dramatic ending,
no public confession,
no single moment that explained everything.
What remained was absence. Rooms that once felt powerful
now felt empty.
Doors that were always closed
were finally opened, and what people expected to find was not there.
No clear answers,
no final truth,
only fragments.
Stories that didn't align, memories that contradicted each other,
silence that still refused to speak.
The system did not disappear.
It dissolved.
Quietly,
carefully,
almost politely.
Some distanced themselves, some denied involvement, some claimed they never knew. But absence does not erase responsibility.
Time moved forward,
but the damage stayed behind. Reputations collapsed,
trust eroded,
certainty vanished. What people were left with
was not justice.
It was doubt, and doubt has a long memory. This was never just about one person.
It was about how long something can exist when everyone agrees not to see it.
Because power does not survive on force alone. It survives on permission. And when permission is finally withdrawn, what remains is not closure.
It is a question. How many times has this happened before? And how many times
did we choose silence instead? The story does not end here.
It lingers.
In empty rooms.
In locked doors.
In the quiet space where truth was supposed to be.